Right, we're talking about signature sounds. Sounds that make your track individual, interesting, unique, inspiring. What I'm talking about here is this interesting sample sound. And of course, this is a sound you're going to find in our sample pack. 50% of all proceeds go to everyone on boards, 50% of proceeds go back into the How Do Things project. Not trying to make any money, just trying to make music in a way that helps other people. This interesting sound that appears in the chorus. This fella right here. Kind of weird, kind of weird. What is that? Doesn't really sound that great in isolation, but when you whack it into the context of other conventional musical sounds, it just gives you that little bit of interest, a little bit of uniqueness that I think would be hard to recreate with a synthesizer or similar. Which is what, you know, one of the best things about sampling is that you find all these sounds that you just wouldn't have been able to imagine or create from twiddling some knobs. It's a wonderful thing. So look, where did this come from? This came from this sound. Let's go show in browser and then we'll bring it out. This sound here, let's make a new track. Apple T, new track. This is the sound that's in there. Little girl being excited about, I guess, skateboarding. Woo! Okay, I'm gonna find the original. Let's find the source, because it's fun to see where it really came from, like way back when. There it is, found it. This is the original sound, a little kid just doing skateboarding and being really joyful about it. Wow! Oh, to be young and happy again. I'm joking, I'm very happy. And, you know, 80-year-olds would consider me young. So that's the sound. And that piqued my interest because when I'm sorting through all of the sounds that we record on our shoots, I'm always listening out for something with a bit of tonal content, because tonal content can be made into a melodic instrument. And that's really useful because it's kind of, percussive sounds are a little bit easier. You can kind of shape a percussive sound as you saw in the skate kit tutorial. It's kind of easy to shape almost anything into a percussive sound. So in some ways, it doesn't really matter what you record. You can make some percussion out of it, but melodic stuff is a bit harder because it has to have some tonal content and it has to have an amount of tonal content that is sort of constant for at least a little bit, so that you can establish a pitch. So yeah, from that original sample, I chopped out this bit, which has some stable pitch to it. Okay, we're going to try and build this from scratch. New MIDI track. Here's the sampler. We're going to put a sampler on there, and then hide the browser, Apple Alt B. So this is the original sample. I'm going to click and drag it onto the sampler. Now if I hit C, there it is, C3. I'm pressing C3 on the keyboard. That's playing at the root pitch of this sample. If I go up, a bit higher, higher, so C3, that's the root pitch. Now I'm just going to chop off the end a little bit here because we don't really need the extra sort of noise. Something like that, we can finesse it later. And now what we need to do is find out what pitch that's at so that we can start building our instrument. So let's go Apple F, tuner, let's pop a tuner on there. Let's see what pitch this is. Nothing. Okay, so this is interesting. Sometimes the sound is a bit too obscure at the root pitch to register what it is. The tuner's like, don't know. So then you just have to try going a bit lower where the tonal element is a bit more drawn out and see if you can give it some ideas. Let's go one semitone down. Okay, there we go. So that's saying it's an F. Very sharp F, let's say. So I'll start here, detune in the sense to bring it down so it's not so sharp. Okay, so that's more or less saying an F, but I'm pressing a B on the keyboard, so that's not right. So that is a difference of B to F is 6 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need to bring this root note up 6 semitones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I'm pressing a B, and okay, it's a little bit unstable. It's like A sharp, B, but the initial note it's hitting is a B. It's a little, you know, when you're using samples, when you're using real world non-musical sounds, pitches are going to be unstable and they're not going to be registered perfectly, which is the reason why you need to have other musical sounds around these sounds to give it musical context and make it a bit more clear, a bit more tonally centered, let's say. But for now, we can see basically, I'm pressing C, it's saying kind of C. So that's good enough. And you know, even though it's not registering the pitch perfectly, if you say play a scale with it, it sounds like a, you know, sounds like a scale. Sounds like a pitched instrument. So that's kind of all you need, is to be able to perceive that. And then what I like to do a lot of the time is just put it straight into looping mode, looping forwards and backwards here, this sustain mode, so that if I want to hold any notes out, it will carry on playing a sound rather than just cutting it short. So it will sound like this if I hold down a note. And so now I can hear that there's a little bit at the end which is not tonal, it's just noise. So I'm gonna just finesse this loop point a little bit. Okay, so now I've just finessed that loop point, added a bit of crossfade, and now when you hold it down, it sounds like this. Which, you know, you could make a chord with, for example, F major. Sounds mental because each note has a different loop point. Like, that's looping every half a second, whereas this one is looping. Well, yeah, you get the picture. But yeah, maybe a bit closer in register. So if you go down here, it sounds all right. So that's something else that's cool about using just one sample, is that each pitch has a different length to all the other pitches. So if you do play a chord and find the right combination, you've just got these sounds moving in relation to each other at different times, which is quite fun. So at this point I had a pitched instrument and I just started playing around with different melodies. And the thing about sounds, I guess most sounds, is that they tend to have, it's like a certain register where they hit just right. At the root pitch there, whatever it was, at the root pitch there, doesn't, you could probably do something with it, but it doesn't really, it's a bit too quick, it's a bit too high pitched, it doesn't really sound great. So you just got to try and play around with the register. And for this one, because it's so high at the root note, I went a bit lower and just started like... And because it's a sample, it's one sound, there's no real variation except for slowing it down and essentially losing some high frequencies because you're slowing it down. It gets very repetitive very quickly. So it had to be a short little motif, and possibly, I knew that I'd need to add some effects or do something a bit more interesting with it down the line to make it less boring, which I think I didn't end up doing because it's such a short motif. So yeah, I started playing with the register and trying to find a different melody, and I came up with this fella right here. Well, that's a bit clicky at the beginning, you can hear, so let's change the volume envelope, just increase the attack a bit. And it's dropping off a bit too soon, so I'm going to increase the release. Sounds good, but it is all sounds a little bit muffled, So let's just put some EQ on here, EQ 8. Good old stock plugins. And then we're going to use our old friend OTT just to shape that tone a little bit more, bring out the highs. My goodness. And then a little bit of chorus, because I like to put chorus on almost anything. Where are you? Chorus ensemble, here we go. All of these free plugins, free or stock Ableton plugins, you can use yourself. I'm just going to do one more EQ here to take out some of those unnecessary lows. And that's sounding pretty cool. Now, the only thing that I did after that was, because it was still sounding a little bit, the pitch was sounding a bit unstable, I added a bit of auto pitch to it using Auto Pitch, another great free plugin from Melda Productions. They have a whole suite of free plugins, which I recommend for anyone who is just looking for some free digital gear. The key of the song was E. Put it into major. I'm just going to turn the speed right up and the depth quite a lot up as well, so that it's just working pretty hard to keep that pitch stable. And then I'm just going to feed it to a bit of reverb, a short sort of plate reverb. then even with all of my efforts to create the correct pitch, when I put it in contact with other properly tuned sounds, it was still sounding not quite right. So I used this detune function on M auto pitch to just bring it up by 50 cents, which put it nicely in key with all of the other sounds that were in E major. And that's pretty much it. It's like kind of a weird sound. Doesn't really sound brilliant on its own, like a lot of the sounds that we end up creating from sound effects, but in context, it sounds pretty wicked.
Everybody helps other people out. Community, the sense of community is such a big thing. Skate culture, it's like.
Yes, and that's pretty much it. That's all for now. Thanks a lot for watching. See you for the next one. Peace.